Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to touch on Russell Brand getting baptized and why I warn him against joining Christianity. Okay, now the reason I'm doing this video is because I saw the news Russell Brand getting baptized, and I actually think he has a sort of similar theory and similar journey to myself, in that he is more on a spiritual journey than just becoming a Christian. And his main antagonist for becoming Christian is Jesus Christ and the teachings and the love of Christ, which is a good thing, in my opinion, that he is getting closer to Christ and the love of Christ. Now, I think a small mistake he may be making is similar to what I made. When I searched the teachings of Jesus, I loved them, and then I started looking into Christianity. But the more I got involved with Christianity, the further I felt away from the love of God. Because you go down this idea of, well, if I love Jesus and accept Jesus and I love God and all that stuff, what's going to happen to all my family and friends who don't accept God? They're all going to eternal hell. And then you start thinking that doesn't make any sense. How can that be a loving God? And why is Jesus Christ on earth so loving and compassionate and opposite of the world? And then the spiritual Jesus is so cruel to send all your family and friends who aren't evil people to an eternal hell to be tormented forever. It makes no sense. And I believe it's because Christianity, the concept that Christianity created of Jesus dying for your sin to save you from hell and an angry God, is false. Even though what Jesus Christ taught, or being the Son of God, if he indeed is, was the truth, that Christian leaders along the way, whether it was nefariously to control people or just through ignorance, have turned Christians away from the true, or people away from the true love of Christ and the true love of God. And what I'm saying is Christians always like to say, oh, that's heretical for you to say that there is an eternal hell, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually look at the early fathers, a lot of the early fathers believed that there was no such thing as eternal torment, and that it was only a temporary place. If people go there, it's only a temporary place, and Christ's and God's ability to redeem and total victory will obviously be won at the end. And the whole narrative behind the Christian story is most likely, or it is basically a load of rubbish. It's based on fear rather than love. I don't stay close to God because I'm scared and I'm afraid of hell. I stay close to God because of his love, and I'm pulled towards that true love, unconditional love, rather than the love of the world. So why am I going to turn away from the true love of God to go to the world? I'm not going to do that. That's what repentance is. So now I'm not going to turn to the world. Whereas if you just try to scare people with hell, we think, well, I'm only here, maybe it's not true, I'll go and party it up and do all this stuff. But it's a fear-based thing. Or if you stop doing all those things because you think you're going to hell, it's based on fear rather than love. And so I would say I agree with Russell Brand in terms of what he spoke about, in terms of getting closer to Christ. And I think if there's three options, you've got the worst option, which is what we're generally heading towards now, which is a very nihilistic society, atheist society, with no meaning, no purpose, and everything's just degenerated. That's the worst way. Then if we became a Christian society, that would be better, because obviously I respect like the church values. If everybody had those values that we used to have, things would obviously be better. But the ultimate goal is for people to be truly reborn. So it's not an outer change like what happens with Christianity. You simply change your outer being and say, right, I'm going to become a Christian and I'm going to follow these rules that are going to benefit society. If you have an inner change, you don't need no rules. You'll live with perfect love, or God will slowly be perfecting you and you'll be on your way to perfection, and you'll have good intentions with God's love rather than having to follow traditions of man. And I know I believe I'm truly reborn spiritually and know the love of God. It is like a magic. It's a beauty that's not known before I woke up. And whereas I would say that being religious is like being in an arranged marriage, whereas being born again is like meeting a woman and falling in love. So you know, when you fall in love with a woman, or if you're a woman, a man, when you fall in love, there's a magical feeling. And that's what it's like being born again. Whereas if you were just like, your family were like, right, you're going to get married to this woman, and you're like, well, I'm not really, the magic isn't there. That's what religion's like. Whereas being born again is a magic, and you have the true love of God. And then if we live in that spiritual kingdom, It's far, far better than living in a worldly kingdom calling ourselves Christians. And that's why I warn people, or I would not warn people in a warning like bad way, but I would tell them not to worry too much about the outer tradition and joining Christianity, and focus more on being born again, having the love of Christ, and spreading the good news of the truth of Christ and the unconditional love of God. That's the ultimate goal. And don't worry too much about Christianity, because then you're going to get, even on his message, you get all the negative Christians. Oh, you're not really a real Christian, and you're doing this for this, and then the conspiracy theorists saying he's doing it because of this and that. And it's just it's more politics than true spirituality and the love of God. As you see with Candace Owens and all the other Christians, they become a Christian, but then their ideology depends on their Christianity, or their Christianity depends on their politics. So for an example, I notice with evangelicals, they love Israel. The Catholics seem to hate the Jews. And then if you become a Muslim, you got to go free Palestine. So like Andrew Tate, free Palestine. Candace Owens like, oh, the Jews this, the Jews that, because she's a Catholic and they seem to hate the Jews. But then you get the evangelicals who've got this obsession with the Jews. Oh, the Jews are God's chosen. We've got to protect Israel, and end time stuff's going to happen. So they don't really care about having the love of God and the love of Christ and loving everyone. Their religion is merely for their political purposes. And if they think their country is being overtaken by certain people, they say we need to return to our Christian roots. But they're not doing it because they have the true love of Christ. They just say Christ is king, but they don't really have the love of Christ in their heart, in my opinion. And because I have spiritual eyes, I see into their souls rather than with fleshly eyes. You can't deceive God or children of God, because we can discern where your intentions lay and if people are being authentic. When I personally believe that Russell Brand is being authentic, and that he generally does want to do well, and that's why I'd advise him to follow Christ rather than Christianity. Okay, so that's the point of my video today. If you agree or disagree, write in the comments below. Like the video if you like it, and subscribe for more, and God bless everyone. Goodbye.